A mountain's echo of kindness. Have you ever been in a race or a game where you really, really wanted to win? On two sides of a great snowy mountain, two little yetis were about to discover a secret about winning that was more important than any race. On the eastern slope of the snowy mountain lived a young yeti named Frost. He was strong and fast, and his greatest dream was to win the annual ice flower race, a tricky climb to the very peak to be the first to find a rare glowing ice flower. On the western slope lived another yeti named Crystal. She was not as fast as Frost, but she was a careful and clever climber. She also dreamed of winning. The day of the race was cold and clear. The two young yetis started at the same time from opposite sides of the mountain. Frost used his power. He bounded up the snowy slopes, his strong legs pushing him far ahead. Crystal used her skill. She carefully navigated the tricky ice patches, her clever eyes finding the safest path. Frost was sure he was going to win. He was so far ahead. He could see the final peak just above him, but in his haste, he didn't see a patch of loose, powdery snow. Whoosh! His foot slipped, and he tumbled down into a small, snowy hollow. He wasn't hurt, but one of his feet was stuck fast in a deep snowdrift. He pulled and pulled, but he couldn't get free. He was trapped. A few minutes later, Crystal arrived at the same spot. She saw Frost stuck in the snow. This was her chance. She could easily climb past him and win the race. She took one step, and then she stopped. She looked at the finish line, so close. But then she looked at Frost's worried, frustrated face. She thought about how lonely it would feel to stand at the top of the mountain all by herself, knowing her friend was stuck below. She made a choice. She walked over to Frost and began to dig with her strong, careful paws. "Your feet are bigger than mine," she said kindly. "Let me help you pack the snow down so you can get a better grip." Frost was amazed. "But you'll lose the race," he said. "A victory is not very warm if you are the only one celebrating it," Crystal said, remembering words her grandmother had taught her. They worked together, and soon Frost's foot was free. They looked up at the peak. Now they would have to race again. But something had changed. They weren't competitors anymore. They were a team. "Let's go together," Frost said. They climbed the final, most difficult part of the mountain side by side. And when they reached the peak, they saw the most beautiful sight. Not one, but two magnificent ice flowers were glowing in the snow, one for each of them. They each picked a flower. They didn't have one winner. They had two. They stood together at the top of the world, and their happy cheers echoed all across the valley. It was the best victory of all, because it was a victory they could share. Frost learned that day that true strength is not just in how fast you can climb, but in knowing when to stop and help a friend. And while the two yetis learned that the best victories are shared, a little gnome in a magical garden was about to learn a very different lesson about what happens when a little mistake is hidden by a big lie. Subscribe to Storiella so you don't miss his big adventure.